What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. And it is once again the Trust the Bank podcast. Myself and Joshua, we've got 3 segments for all of you to go through. We are going to be talking about some good things, over the next, 45 minutes or so. But if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be split up into 3 segments like normal. So this will be the first segment. The next 2 days, we will have the next 2 segments. But we will be getting into Marcus Peters, Amari Cooper trade. We'll be getting into the Stephen A. Smith and Ryan Clark, ESPN debate on Lamar Jackson shouldn't take the field until he gets a contract. And then finally, we will wrap it up with some Zadarius Smith, potential cut candidate, then potentially him coming to the Ravens. And funny enough, we actually talked about these topics a couple days ago. And then today, Zadarius Smith was spotted in Baltimore, at the time of recording this. So that we'll talk about that to finish it off. But prior to that, we're doing a live stream. We're recording this Wednesday night. Shout out to all the viewers in there. But we had a special request for Joshua to say a particular phrase. So Joshua, the people want to hear you say, "Aaron earned an iron urn." Let's hear it.
Asmodeus, Jalen, all the guys that was in the stream, I appreciate y'all, making y'all donation. So for you all, I will say it. Aaron earned an iron urn.
There it is, guys. We got the Baltimorean to say the famous phrase. But let's get into this. Let's get into this this trade proposed by Bleacher Report Gridiron. And this is something that I think a lot of Ravens fans, rightly so, were very confused at, and we're laughing at it because it just makes absolutely 0 sense. Why would the Baltimore Ravens trade Marcus Peters for Amari Cooper? But you know what? It's like a pseudo is this stupid because it's like obviously stupid. So it's not technically an is this stupid. But let's talk about it. And just as a whole, Joshua, why does this trade not make sense?
I mean, for the simple fact that, we have wide receivers, we have our own weapons. But, to even go even further, we need corners. Where were we hurting at this previous year? Our corner depth. And when we hurting at our corner depth, we ran our Pro Bowl corner to the ground, and he ended up getting hurt, and then he finished out the season. And on top of that, yes, even trading Peters would cost us a $5.5 million in dead cap space, but supposedly it'll save us over $10 million. I know, Dallas has a overcrowded wide receiver room with Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, and even CeeDee Lamb. But for them to even say we should trade Peters, knowing that we need our corners for another top 20 wide receiver that's on the back end of that top 20, I just don't understand that. So, Bleacher Report, I'm going to need you all to try again.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I recognize with it is like trading Marcus Peters, I understand can be a possibility, and I'm not overly against that. But trading him for a wide receiver just makes 0 sense. And not only like Marcus Peters is a better cornerback than Amari Cooper is a wide receiver. And I like Amari Cooper. I think he's a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. But if we're going to trade Marcus Peters for a wide receiver, it better be for a top 10 wide receiver, which nobody would trade a top 10 wide receiver for Marcus Peters. And that's nothing against Marcus Peters. It's just, he's on an expiring contract. He's coming off of an injury. He's not worth that value. So in terms of trading for a wide receiver, it makes no sense because when you trade Marcus Peters, you have to replace him. And why would the Ravens trade him for a position they don't need a replacement at wide receiver? If they traded him for an edge rusher or an offensive tackle or something where it's like, okay, now we're shifting that need to no longer do we need a tackle, we need a corner, I'm more okay with that. But for a wide receiver, it makes no sense. And also, looking at it from the Dallas Cowboys point of view, why would they trade for Marcus Peters? That is a horrible trade for them. Like we talk about, it's bad for the Ravens. It's even worse for the Cowboys because their secondary would be the 2 most bait-driven, most big play giving up cornerbacks in the NFL. I mean, they would give up 500 passing yards a game. They may get 2 picks a game, but they're going to give up 500 passing yards a game because their cornerbacks are just going to be biting at every double move that's thrown at them. It would make no sense from either side. And it's just like, I don't know who writes these articles because they're atrocious. And like, who makes these? They're like social media posts, I guess. They're not technically articles. They're like, or maybe they write articles on them. I don't read them because they're so ridiculous that I wouldn't read them. If it was a trade that makes sense, I would read it. But it's so stupid that it doesn't make any sense.
And I mean, even on top of that, I know Eric DeCosta likes to pull the wool over our heads, but knowing that, with Marcus Peters coming to Baltimore, and listen to that last interview he had saying like, being here at this facility, being here with this team brought back that spirit in him, to want to play again. And honestly, once we traded for him and he got that pick, took it to the house, and we was out LA, he was jawing at it with Jalen Ramsey. You can tell that dog was back in him. So being able to, actually have a guy back in the locker room with that type of energy, with that type of drive, with that type of fire, I don't see us making a horrendous trade in that sense. Because if you trade away, like you said, if you trade away a guy like Marcus Peters, you have to immediately answer, with a JC Jackson, even maybe a Stephen Gilmore. You have to get someone that is solidified, because if you go ahead and put all your hopes and dreams on the 14th pick next to a Marlon Humphrey, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask for out of a young man that just get into the league. Some guys are going to be NFL ready, and we already know that. I mean, at 14, we would have to pick up the litter. But at the same time, with the Marcus Peters, knowing what he means to Baltimore and knowing what Baltimore means to him, I don't see him wanting to leave on no trade. I see them maybe even working out his contract, because he does, give us like I think it's like a $15 million cap hit this year. So I mean, I kind of see them working things out. And EDC loves, giving guys second chances. I mean, look at Tavon Young. Tavon Young literally, I wouldn't say begged, but he definitely did plead his case like, hey, don't give up on me. I can come back. And Tavon Young, was one of the most solid tacklers in our secondary. I will argue that. And and he played the whole season. He got a little banged up, but he played the whole season.
And the biggest thing that we haven't even mentioned, Amari Cooper's contract is ridiculous. He's making $20 million a year through 2024. Why would the Ravens tie up all their money into Amari Cooper, who in 2024, Rashad Bateman, I expect to be better than Amari Cooper. Like, I think Rashad Bateman could be a top 15 wide receiver in 3 years. So, like, then Amari Cooper would be our wide receiver 2? Maybe a wide receiver 3 making $20 million? It makes no sense whatsoever. And it's just like, it's crazy that whenever like Ravens trades get brought up, everyone's like, oh, they need wide receivers. That's not the problem. They need Greg Roman gone. If you want to say fix the pass game, it's not the wide receivers. It's the scheme that sucks.
Yep.
So that's overall the biggest thing that I noticed from it is it's just like, stop focusing on the wide receivers. The wide receivers are fine. They're good. Now, the way that we get them the ball and the routes that we put them on, less good. Amari Cooper is going to struggle just as much as the other Ravens wide receivers because he's going to be running a route that's running into Mark Andrews or running into Hollywood or running into Rashad Bateman.
Very true. Very true.
Man, the media is just wild. But do you have anything else to talk about on this trade?
No, not really. I mean, like you said, the media is wild. With the media being wild, that's why you all should be, subscribing to us more often.
Great transition right there. Let's finish up that segment. Let's get into the next segment.